Hello, I am Scotty McCoy, and I am the author of the Ultimate Friday the 13th Trivia book, and I am working on another book titled The Ultimate Slasher Movie Encyclopedia, and I am going to be interviewing some alumni from the Friday the 13th franchise, and right now I have Bob DeSimone, who played Billy in Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning. Hi, Bob, how are you doing?
I'm good, Scotty. How are you?
I'm doing great, doing great. So I have a couple questions I'm going to ask you, about 15 of them I have for you. So the first question I have is, what was your audition like for Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning?
Well, actually, it wasn't an audition. I had basically quit the business. I started out as a drummer, which I still do, went into comedy, then acting, and then I started my own business in '83. So I basically left the business, and I got a call from my brother, Tom, the director.
Okay.
I think you're familiar with him.
Yes.
Okay. He called me and said Danny Simon was shooting Friday 5. He read it in Variety. He said, why don't you give him a call? He said he was looking for you, couldn't find you. My agent said I was no longer with the agency. It goes back to a movie I did with Danny. I did, Linda Blair, and I played Mr. Meeker. Can't remember the name of the movie. It was a long time ago. When I was working with Danny, he said, I would like to use you in any other film I do. There's certain actors I get along with and I work with well, they work with me, so I'm going to keep in touch with your agent. Whenever I do a film, I'm going to call you. I said,
Right.
okay, that's fine. But this was back, a year or two before. So I called Danny. And he said, where were you? I've been trying to, I want to give you a good part in the movie. I have nothing left except 2 little parts. So I really didn't audition.
Okay.
I called him and I had a part. I had
Right.
2 parts, the ambulance driver and then Billy pulling up to pick up Lana.
Right.
He knew I wrote and then I did improv. He said, can you make those 2 characters one character? You can have both roles, and I said sure. So that was it. I mean, I just showed up and shot it. He sent me my pages, and I wrote out a little script how we could make these 2 characters one, and they accepted that, and then I improvised what was in the card.
Awesome. And Savage Streets is the name of the movie, right? Savage Streets. Yep. Yep. I just quickly looked it up while you were telling me that, and I was like, I had to look that up. That was gonna drive me nuts. Actually, I like when you played the ambulance driver at first, like when you went to Pam, like you did. I'm guessing that was all improv, and it was really good because like even when you said no problem doll or something like that, and you did like the tongue thing to her, that made your character just have that much feel to him. Like this guy, he's gonna be seen later in the film. You know something's gonna happen there, and you know Jason's got to get a guy like that.
I didn't think of it that way. Actually, I did the tongue thing for a reason. The script called for me to just pull up, open the door, and say Tommy, a couple of times, and that was it. So I just threw in, sit there, I don't give a shit. And then when she came walking out, I started staring at her and half coming onto her. And while she was talking to him, I was out of the frame.
Right.
But I stayed in character and I was just looking her up and down, and she stopped in the middle of the scene. And Danny said, what are you doing? She said, he's making me so nervous. And Danny said to her, you're an actress, use it. Just use it. Either ignore him or, don't stop. Okay,
right.
So we had to do the whole scene over, just her coming out. Okay,
right.
Coming out, and I continued, and I wasn't really miffed at her, but when she walked away, that's why I did a little tongue thing, just
throw it a little bit, and they used it in the film anyways. That's pretty funny. So, can you describe in depth what it was like filming and even prepping for your death scene and how they filmed all that?
Well, you mean prepping for just the death scene?
Yeah, like how do they film and like do the death scene? Like how was that created?
Okay, they made a dummy, of course, of me. And the funny thing was, they didn't realize I had a bald spot. I mean, I've shaved my head years and years ago, but at the time I still had a little hair and a bald spot. So then they had to send the dummy back and do this bald spot deal. And they had a stunt driver race that Dodge up the street, do the donut, stop, and then I get in the car and they set up the camera and I started yelling for Lana.
Yep.
And that was that. Now, after that, after I shot my scene with the cocaine and everything, they were all shot out of sequence.
Right.
They did the entire scene with me, and then they went back and did her scene.
Right.
So they took the right side of the door off, passenger side, and I could put the cocaine up in the little visor. And Danny said, just do what you want. He said, you want to have a good time? I said, yeah, man, He said, do whatever you want. So I said, okay. So I rigged the stuff up there and I got the stuff ready. And that was it. I mean, after I did the blow, I called her again, and then that was the end of my scene. Oh yeah, the only other thing I shot was they faced the camera onto the cocaine sitting on the console,
right.
And I brushed my hand by that because I was supposedly just axed in the head.
Right.
Then they put the camera up and I opened my eyes wide and they zoomed in for the head. When they shot the scene with the axe in the head, I don't know. They probably shot it later that night because it was cold. It was California cold. It wasn't cold. It was cold for us.
Right.
We were all inside that building.
Okay.
That's known as the Rock Store out here. It's very popular.
Okay.
It's up on Mulholland Highway, and a lot of motorcycles go there on the weekends and hot rods and whatnot. So
cool.
We stayed inside, and I think that's when they shot the scene with the axe in my head.
Oh, okay, that's pretty cool. Actually, I can't believe I'm gonna tell you this, but all the time, when I even at my own apartment, but my dog lives with my parents. But I always his name is Reggie, and I go to him I'll go Reggie, when I'm trying to call him, and then I always think of the Lana scene. I'll be like, Lana, hey, when he's not even paying attention to me, just out of nowhere, and I get a kick out of it every time because I just think of that when I'm calling him. I'm like, Reggie.
I get Lana all the time. After all these years, I keep getting Lana.
You'll see right on my Facebook, I put a little status about, I'm so excited for the interview, and somebody said, put about the Lana scene, hey Lana, they go. It's pretty funny. I love that. That's a great scene. So, what was your experience like filming a Friday the 13th film?
Well, like I said, excuse me, I only worked on it 2 days, so I know there's a lot of stories about a lot of drugs on the set and so on and so forth, but believe me, I just, I knew it would be my last anything on film, tape or whatever. So, not that I went about it half-heartedly, it wasn't bad. I just gave it all I had and improvised as much as I could and had a good time. But I only shot for 2 days, so I wasn't in and around a lot of. I've only seen the movie twice in its entirety. At the wrap party, and then I went once and saw the premiere, and that was it. I've seen pieces of it on TV, and of course I've got my scenes saved.
Right, of course. I must have seen the film about at least 100 times. Every film in the franchise, and probably even a lot more than that, because writing the Ultimate Friday the 13th trivia book, I watched all 12 films about maybe 3 or 4 times just to prepare for the film itself. So, for the book itself. So, I just love the franchise, and Part 5 is one of my favorites.
Really? Yeah. Well, thank you. But again, I don't have stories.
That's fine.
I do have one story, and I hate telling it, but because the girl that played Lana, she's still around, and I just hate to. I don't even know if it's been printed.
Oh wow.
So she was married to Ray Sharkey at the time.
Okay.
And Ray Sharkey is now dead. He he died of AIDS, but it was, the story was that it was from needles because
Okay.
he was a heroin user, unfortunately. So Danny and I were discussing him and his heroin use, and we didn't know she was married.
Oh wow.
She was sitting right there, so it was a, yeah.
Don't worry, I won't publish it. Oh.
My brother was shooting a film with him, and he called me. He said, I'm going to be with Ray Sharkey tomorrow, shooting a couple of scenes. And I really loved him. I loved him in The Idolmaker.
Mm-hmm.
So my brother said, come on over. We're at such and such a place, and you can meet him. And so by the time I showed up, they were trying to get a scene shot. He was so gone. He was so far gone on heroin. He couldn't even. I never really met him. So we were discussing that around her, and it wasn't. It was. She just said, "Are you talking about Ray Sharkey?" I said, "Yeah, he's in pretty bad shape." She said, "My husband." And Danny and I went, "Oh." So she said, "Well, he's just had a problem with Valiant." We said, "Oh yeah, sure, okay." And so we just left it there.
Right. Wow. Is she on Facebook at all? Do you know?
I don't know.
Because I know she was in the Crystal Lake Memories documentary, and I really wanted to interview her as well. So I mean, I just I couldn't really find her anywhere yet.
Yeah, somebody told me she's still around. I just don't know.
Right.
Have you looked for her on Facebook?
I looked on Facebook. I couldn't really find her, but I didn't really put much effort into it because I'm really busy, and I had about maybe 7 interviews in the past week and a half.
Yeah.
And then I work full time as a software database engineer, and then I'm on the side. I work for my best friend's small web company as a senior PHP developer. On top of that, writing this book, doing interviews, so much going on. Yep. So let's see. What was it like working with Melanie Kinnaman for a brief scene you had with her?
You mean the scene at the truck?
Yeah, like what was it like just working with her, like as an actress?
Honest to God, that was it. I never even met her. It wasn't even a hello. It was just the truck pulled up, and then I got out, opened the door, and she came walking out. And that's really the first time I saw her.
Oh wow, and that's the last time too.
It was the last time as well. So, that scene was it. I mean, that was it. I got there to do my scene, and after that day, I went home and came back a few days later and shot the nighttime scene.
Okay.
So I really didn't have a lot of time we never chatted. I mean, we may have said, hello, how are you? And we're going to shoot the scene, but that was it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I asked her for an interview, and she was very nice. She said that maybe if I'm still working on the book in the future, because I told her it wouldn't be out probably for at least 2, maybe 3 years, because there's so much content I have to do in it. But she said right now she's writing a book of her own, and she's very busy doing that and doing conventions. So she said in the future, if I'm still looking to interview her, she'll let me know, or I can message her back in maybe a couple months or so. Maybe she'd be available for it. She was really nice about it, though, so I was really happy that she's open to it.
I've done a few interviews, and sometimes what the interviewer will do is send an email with the questions.
That's a good idea, too.
And then I just answer the questions and send it back.
Right.
So if she's not really available for a Skype or phone,
right.
Just ask her if she'll do that, and then she can do it at a leisure, take a little time.
I never thought of that, because I did do that with some people. With Ron Sloan Jr., who played Junior. I did that through him, and I also did it with Darcy DeMoss, who plays Nikki in Part 6. They both requested me to do that, but I never really thought of actually going forward that way with people that aren't available. That's a good idea. I'm definitely going to do that.
I've done it. It was easier for me at the time because I was real busy.
Right.
And he got the chance to get his interview.
Okay. Yeah, that's really great. I'm definitely going to do that now. So everyone knows that your character Billy was a cocaine addict. So what was the cocaine actually made from for the scene that it was used in?
It's manite, which is a baby laxative.
Oh, okay.
But it doesn't, that little bit didn't affect me, thank God. It's teeny bit. Manite, now, I'm only saying this because this is what I heard. It's what they cut cocaine with.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, when people are dealing cocaine, they cut it with manite. Because it looks just like cocaine. It doesn't harm you in any way, so they cut it with baby laxative. So on the set, they just happened to eat, and they put it in the bottle.
And did you really snort it for the scenes, or did you just was that all acting? You did.
No, that's snorted.
Okay. Wow. That's pretty interesting. So, how did you get your start in acting?
Well, I started as a musician. I still play. And then I went into comedy, worked the comedy store, did all that. And then I got a taste for comedy and joined improv groups. So I did a lot of work with improv groups, and then I went from there into stand-up comedy.
Okay.
And then from stand-up, I had a few people approach me, and I did a couple of small parts. I did some TV shows, and so I just started going after that,
Okay.
going after the acting. But it all started from the improv groups. I did a lot of work in the theaters
Okay.
around here, worked the comedy store, the
That's
improv,
pretty cool.
lots of clubs, lots of comedy clubs. And that got me into the acting. And then every now and then when my brother had a film, he'd throw me a part and I'd jump in.
Right.
Like I said, I did TV. I did Make Me Laugh. There was a show that was on years ago and I did 10 shows for them. And a little extra work, stuff like that. But
Okay.
that's how I get into it, from the
That's
improv.
pretty cool. That's great. So, what was your most memorable or favorite moment during your time filming Friday the 13th Part 5?
My favorite part was being able to improvise in the car.
That's great.
It was absolutely. I mean, the script read, Billy pulls up and yells for Lana,
Right.
and she says, "I'll be right out." And that was it. And then Billy snorts cocaine and then calls her again. That's all. That's all it was.
Right.
So while I was writing, making the guy in the van the same guy as Billy. I mean, it was pretty simple. I did it by saying, what was the line I wrote? The pride of the Hunger Institute of Mental Health just emptied his last bedpan and would like very much to party. Well, that made us the same guy.
Right.
So that was that. And I wrote in, who wants her? Billy want Lana to go with nothing on her. Danny and the guy said, this will work. Okay, that's fine. But it was right that night, that very night, Danny said, why don't you just do whatever you want in the... Because his thing was he wanted me to have a bigger part.
Right.
But he couldn't find me, so the whole thing was cast except for these two smaller parts.
Right.
So while they were, when you're shooting movies, I don't know if you realize that it takes forever to shoot the smallest piece of film, just forever.
Yeah.
So the car was out there, they were setting up the cameras, they were trying to get the lighting, the whole thing, making sure, the girl was over by the store repeating her lines to me, even though it wasn't what was used on the film. I was just calling her and she was just talking her lines back to me. And then later they shot her lines and I talked my lines to her.
Right.
How they do it. But that was the most fun, being able to just improvise in the car and goof around. And
Right. That's great. It does seem like a lot of fun. Like every fan's dream is pretty much to be in a Friday the 13th film, and especially be killed by Jason. And you got to do both. That's great. So, how did you find out about this film, and what was it like when you found out that it was a Friday the 13th? Because I know a lot of people said that it was originally titled Repetition. So I didn't know if you knew that or not. Like, did they tell you it was Friday the 13th right from the beginning?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
In fact, I found out, as I said, when my brother called me and said Danny's time and got in touch with him and said, where's your brother? I'm trying to find him. Friday the 13th again, I was like, okay, all right. So, again, I had left and started my own business, but I thought, well, if he wants me, I love Danny. He was a great guy, and I thought I'd be happy to do it.
Right.
So, to tell you the truth, Scotty, I had no idea this franchise would take off like it did.
Right.
I mean, the last thing I thought was I'd be doing these interviews.
Right.
I get letters from people all over the world asking for autographs. I send them. I don't charge. I just send them out. I mean, if they're nice enough to ask them, I'm nice enough.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I'm honored that they would like my autograph, so
Right.
I'm happy to do it.
That's great.
But I didn't think it would be any great film, as far as I knew it would probably be a box office success for the production company.
Right.
But I just felt it was a B horror movie, which is what it is. They all
Yeah.
are.
They all are, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, but some of them, like these, they become cult hits, and
Yeah.
it wasn't until years later. I don't even know how it happened. Somebody wanted to interview me, and I said, "For what? You interview me for what?" Excuse me, sir. Yeah. All right, love you. I'll see you later. Okay, bye. I'm like,
No problem.
she's taking a course in the Moore Park College.
Not a problem.
So I had no idea what they were talking about. I said, interview me for the band I used to be in, or TV, or he said, no, Friday. And I said, are you serious? And so we started talking, and he said, there's a lot of fans that would love to get in touch with you. I said, oh, okay. I said, well, I said, you can put my email address up there, because I have a few. I said, you can put my email address up if you like. And I started, right after that, I started getting hit with all kinds of stuff, which was just amazing, just amazing. People send me stuff to sign, so hockey masks or whatever, posters,
Right.
And just a mind blower.
Right. When I interviewed Stu Charno, he played Ken in Part 2. He said that he took it was the first sequel. He didn't know if it was going to be a success. It was just only one sequel after that, so he took it because it was a job and all that. And then seeing 12 all these films later, how big of a franchise it became. Even the screenwriter of the first film, Victor Miller, he said he never intended a sequel. He said that in his mind, Jason Voorhees was dead. The mom was the killer, and that's all it was. And then it just turned where Jason never drowned. He became this bigger, larger than life, iconic serial killer in the horror franchise. It just blossomed.
Yeah.
Yep. So
you never know. I mean, you really never know. This was years later that this all started, and then somebody asked me if they could send me something, so I gave them my office address, and right after that, stuff started coming to my office in the mail. Would you please sign this? Would you sign my hockey mask? And yeah, sure, send it away. And then Facebook, that was crazy.
Oh, I know.
I got friend requests all the time.
Yeah.
On Facebook.
Yep,
So,
and I'm honored to be one of them friends on your Facebook, and I'm doing this interview now. It's so great. No problem. So, do you do any horror conventions? And if you don't do them, would you be open to the possibility of doing them?
Conventions?
Yeah.
I did one and one only because a guy bugged me to do it, and it was in Burbank, which is not that far from me.
Right.
But it wasn't a Friday the 13th. It was a Monster Palooza, I think, for a whole lot of other horror movies and whatnot. So there was no setup for me to sign autographs and nothing like that. But I went. And there were a few of us from Friday the 13th and some from Savage Streets. But we were sent off to a separate room. Nobody knew where we were. This guy just wanted to get us in there.
Right.
So it was okay. I mean, the people were nice, but I've been hit a lot for conventions, and so far it just hasn't piqued my interest enough.
Okay.
I understand. It's funny taking $20 for an autograph. I really do.
I understand that. I mean, a lot of people do it because they need the money, and then other people just don't want to do it because they'd rather do it because they wouldn't have a career if it wasn't for the fans.
Yeah, that's right. And I don't need the money, and I don't say that in a braggadocious way.
Right.
I don't need the money, but I feel funny. Somebody wants an autograph. It's my honor.
Right.
That's I feel.
Yep. That's
people
how.
always say to me, "What do you charge?" And I say, "If you're nice enough to ask, I'm
Nice enough to give.
do.
Yeah. Cause that's how like even when like I live in a small town and I walk so I only have two. I just got my second book published now, and somebody like they saw me walking on the street and they bought my book. They must have just got it in the mail and they asked me if I would autograph it for them, and I said absolutely. And they said, you don't want no money or anything for it? I said no, you bought the book. I mean I'm honored if they ask me for an autograph. I love it. I'm not even a celebrity by any means, and I love the attention. I'm a quote unquote, as my parents call me, an attention whore. I love the attention. I love the attention. I love when people ask for an autograph. I love when people, want a picture with me or buy my like all that stuff. I love it. I don't want to charge people for it. If I do a convention, I would love to go and have a booth up, but I wouldn't be charging to do it. If they want, they can buy the book off me, and then I can autograph that if they want. If they bought the book online, bring the book. I'll sign it free of charge.
What book? What was your other book?
I have the Ultimate Friday 13 tribute book, which I had out, which was out in February 2016, and it just got released. I think it was last week. The Ultimate Halloween trivia book.
Okay.
And the book now I'm working on is the Ultimate Slasher Movie Encyclopedia, which right now I'm on chapter 1 of Friday the 13th, and I'm already over 100 pages, and I'm not even halfway done that chapter. Yeah, and I mean I'm past the interview section, but while I'm doing interviews, I'm going back to that and inserting them in as I do the interviews. Like after I interview you, I'm gonna make up a short snippet so they can hear what the interview is about, a little bit about maybe a 4 to 5 minute clip of it, and then I'll end up posting a little screenshot of the interview after I put it in my book in Microsoft Word, and I'll do that, and it keeps me busy, keeps me out of trouble. I'll be 28 at the end of the year in December. Yep.
Kid, you're a baby.
Yep. Still. Yep. So tell the readers about your music career.
My music career. I started. Did you see the Wikipedia thing?
Yes, I did look into that. Yes.
So I was always. Drumming is something that's just always been with me. I think I was born a drummer. And I played professionally since I was about 14 or 15. And I came to California when I was 20, 1966. And I wound up in the Ash Grove, which was the club in LA. Not a fancy joint. It was more of a funky, bluesy, folksy kind of place, but big. Right. And all the blues artists played there. B.B. King, Albert King. I played for Albert King. I played for Big Mama Thornton, Big Pearl, Longo Miles, Big Mama Thornton, Curtis Tillman, all these people. And from there, I don't know, you're probably young. Do you know who Taj Mahal is?
When I think of Taj Mahal, I think of the hotel.
Right. Well, not the hotel, the actual structure over in India.
Oh, in India, yes, I do know about that too, yeah.
But this is a black blues singer that had a dream. His name was Taj Mahal, and when I hear the name Taj Mahal, I think of him. Huge back then, and he's still big now in the blues genre. Okay. And I was his drummer for a while, and then I signed on with. I did a lot of studio work, recording for people, and. I was picked up by a group called Country, which it wasn't country music, it was country rock. The reviewers said that we were a cross between Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young and the band. It was a funky band with great harmonies. Right. And we cut a couple of albums and went on the road. We opened for the Bee Gees and Fleetwood Mac, and Taj Mahal and our band wound up in the same show one night, so that was fun. But it was going very well, but we had a lot of problems with management and so on. Right. Everything fell apart. So I knocked around from there, and after that, that's when I got involved in comedy with the improv. Okay. But the music career went real well, and we were when you're opening for big bands like that, you're kind of next. We were opening for Linda Ronstadt as well. Wow. And managed by her manager, Peter Asher. So, that's great. But management problems, fighting with the record company, the management, and the whole thing just kind of went away, which is not uncommon. Right. In show business. Yeah. That's what they say. Even I watched Days of Our Lives. I don't know if you ever saw Days of Our Lives.
it would like even some of the actors and actresses when they get let go, like the fans tell them, "Oh, I'm so sorry you lost your job," and they're like, "It's just another day in the industry." It happens all the time. Yep.
There's a lot of bands that were great that are off by the wayside, you know.
Yep.
But the good thing was working at the Ash Grove with all those black musicians. Some of these guys were kind of like people I listened to. It was all of a sudden like, geez, I'm playing for Curtis Tillman. I'm backing Big Mama Thornton. I mean, this is like, you know, these people may not be familiar to you, but
Right.
you know, these are grandchildren of slaves and really singing the real blues. You know,
Yeah.
I was just blown away being in their presence, and
Yep.
I was a brother to them, and I cut my teeth as far as R&B and blues with these people. And then I got called while I was with country. We were playing the Palladium, and the promoter came to me and said, "Chuck Berry's coming in town. Do you want to back him?" And I said, "Do I want to back him?" Yeah.
You'll be there with bells on.
And I was. I backed him at the swing. I looked 10,000 people. JoJo Gunn, Lee Michaels. You may not know any of these people, but Long John Baldry and Chuck Berry was a star. And,
I know Chuck Berry.
The sprinklers went off. The security was throwing huge bags of ice on the audience. He just blew the place away. And there I am playing for Chuck Berry. I used to play his records as a kid.
Wow, that's great.
So I had a blessed time, if you will, with the music back then.
That's
great. I
great.
got to play with a lot of great people.
That's awesome. Living the dream, living the American dream right there.
Yeah.
So did you ever use comedy as a gateway in your acting?
Oh, sure. Anytime I used to go on an audition, I would try and throw something funny in.
Okay.
You know, I auditioned once for a part of a bad guy. Well, it wasn't so much comedy, but they didn't know it. I brought a knife in with me. And I was supposed to pull a knife on somebody, and I pulled the knife on the casting director and had it at his throat, and everybody freaked out, but I just kept doing my lines, and then they realized, you know, well, he's in character, but I didn't get the part. But
right. Hey, I want to give you the part. That's taking it to an extra mile. You could have gotten arrested just trying to get a job. That's great.
Yeah, but I always try to inject a little comedy or something they'll remember. You know?
You're probably telling the story to this day. That's great. So, when you did comedy, what were the types of jokes you told? Like, tell the readers a bit about your life as a comedian.
That was, that's when I found out that I think one of the reasons my career in show business didn't go further. I was up there with Letterman, Jay Leno, Jerry Seinfeld.
I read all that. I read all that on your Wikipedia page. I have a question about that coming up.
Working with those guys, and for me, I was always waiting to be discovered.
Right.
And that's not where it's at. You got to go out and try and hunt down.
Right.
You got to hunt down a manager or an agent. You got to fight them. Mm-hmm. Put your name in and beg them to come and see you and so on and so forth. I did have a couple of people come to me. That's how I got on Make Me Laugh. They happened to be in the audience one night and they saw me. And they got in touch with Mitzi Shore, the owner of the comedy store. And I went and they put me on, I did 10 shows for Make Me Laugh, which was great. But working at the comedy store back in the heyday, when comedy was, back then in the mid-70s, it was as big as music is today. The comedy clubs are all over and they were packed. It was like this just a resurgence of stand-ups. All of a sudden, they were as popular as big musicians, you know. Right. And it was amazing. It was a great time. In fact, Mitzi Shore called me. She was the owner. Have you heard the name Mitzi Shore?
Sounds familiar.
Well, she's the one that ran the comedy store and gave comedians their chance on TV. I'll tell you a story I don't tell many people. She came to me one night and she said, "Bob, you're ready." And I said, "Ready?" She said, "You're ready. I'll have the people from the Tonight Show come in and see you, but you got to give me 5 minutes of material you can do on TV." Because in a club, we did anything.
Right.
and it's not that I did blue material all the time, but some stuff you just can't do on TV, even if it's edgy. And I never, ever, I kept putting it off and putting it off. Never happened. And then I came in third in the Los Angeles comedy. All the comedians on Los Angeles, I came in third in the comedy competition.
Nice.
But I never, was it fear of failure, fear of success? I'm being really honest with you.
Right.
I have no idea. But she was giving me a shot on the Tonight Show, and I just never got around to giving her 5 minutes of what they call TV material.
Right.
You know, it can't be controversial. It certainly can't be blue. You got to come out, Mr. Nice Guy.
Right.
I could have dashed that stuff off in 5 minutes, but I just never did it.
Wow.
You know? So that.
Do you regret not doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure do, yeah. But you know, right now I'm doing good. I mean, I'm just about retired, but I really don't have any money worries at all. So
That's
my
great.
business did really well. But money's one thing, fame's another. You just kind of want that fame.
Yeah, that's how I am. Like I said, the attention whore status. You want the fame. You want the people to remember you and love you and talk about you and ask about you, approach you, all that.
Now, you know the actor Chris Cooper?
Yes.
He's a friend of mine.
Okay.
He says to me, forget it. He hates the, he loves to act.
Right.
When he's done acting, he goes back to his little house in Massachusetts
Right.
and cuts trees and builds things, and he hates the limelight. When people, if we're out to dinner sometimes, because we have a summer home in Cape Cod,
Right.
when we're back there, they're in that general area, so we visit them all the time, and they'll hang with us, and we go out to dinner. Somebody always comes up to the table. He's very nice. He's very, thank you very much,
Right.
all that. And he said, I basically like people, so it's not a problem.
Right.
But being, flown all over, you never see him do the Tonight Show or any of it. He just doesn't want he doesn't want any of that. He just wants to work and go home.
Right. One thing you know, though.
Without it, he just wants to act.
Right. One thing I can tell you though is you'll definitely be remembered probably for the next 100 years, even longer than that, as Billy from Friday the 13th. That's something that will never go away.
That's what I picked up. I see it online, and for kicks one day I typed in "snow flurries up your nose" in Google.
Yeah.
And it came up, and I went, "Wow, look at that!"
That's great.
That's pretty cool.
That's great.
I wrote that shit, out of my head in the car, and
it's Google. There. Yeah, you Google and Google knows who you are.
Yeah, so I got a little thing.
There you go. So this one goes back to who you worked with in comedy, and I actually got this question from your Wikipedia page. So what was it like working with Jerry Seinfeld during your time as a comedian?
I always looked at him because he was not famous at the time.
Right.
Letterman had already been on TV. Jay Leno had already been on The Tonight Show. They weren't as big as they finally were. Seinfeld hadn't done anything yet,
Right.
But I always thought, boy, look at this wimpy little guy. He would walk up on stage in his little suit, walk up there, do his stuff, literally on stage, take notes what he was doing. Some jokes would bomb. When the joke bombed, I never let it show, but it kills you. Him, he just checked that one off and kept going. And,
wow. Very professional.
He would go off stage, he would go back to the back of the house where the comedians hung out, and he would go, well, that didn't work. That was strictly business. He's a very funny guy. He's naturally funny. He's got a great mind. But I always looked at these guys and said, wow, these guys are working this like a real business.
Right.
They were honing their act to be a certain way to get on TV. The big thing was to get on the Tonight Show.
Right.
And they worked really hard. Me, I was looking just to get laughs. I was happy to get laughs, and then I go off and do something else. Like I said, I never parlayed what I was doing.
Right.
I never got my 5 minutes up there. But
so did you ever like speak to Jerry Seinfeld?
Oh sure, I talked to him all the time.
And how was he? Was he nice?
Very nice. nice guy. He's exactly what you see, and Letterman is the same way.
Okay.
And Leno is the same way.
Right.
Same way. Same way. And Mitzi Letterman is a very, very nice, personable guy. Leno, same way. Jerry Seinfeld, same way. Just nice guys. Always
Right.
talking, shooting the breeze, easygoing.
Right.
2 different nights. Mitzi Shore called me once, and she said Richard Pryor is doing a guest set. He was already massively famous. She said, I want you in tonight because there'll be a lot of people there, some people in the industry, and I want them to see you. And I said, great.
Right.
I'm thinking I'm going to open for him. I get there. She says, no, you're following him.
Oh, wow.
So he gets up there and does about an hour. Hilarious. Audience is falling down. He finishes, and then they announce me. I get up, people are putting on their coats, they're leaving, they're waving to one another. I'll meet you outside. It was the worst.
Wow.
No, it's even, you don't want to follow somebody that good. And the place was emptying, and I was up there trying to do my routine, right? Then the same thing happened. She said, there's a kid coming in from New York. His name is Billy Crystal, another nice guy. Very nice guy. She said, Billy Crystal's coming in. I said, I never heard of him. She said, well, he's big in New York, but he's coming in. I want you to come in. I said, great. You think, this time I could go on before him? She said, well, I'm juggling people. I had to follow him again. Crystal does 45 minutes, impressions, singing, dancing, everything. And when he's done the same fucking thing, everybody's leaving. They figure the show's over, and I'm standing there like a dope.
Oh, dear.
It's not easy.
I love Jerry's show, Seinfeld. I watch that on reruns all the time, so I always wanted to meet him, and I never really got a chance to meet him. I mean, I'm not in New York. I'm far from New York or LA, wherever he's at. So I heard he's a very nice guy, and I remember I think it was on Live with Kelly and Michael one time. He was on that show. And he said, like, he was talking about Seinfeld. He said, if you ever look at all my scenes on Seinfeld, when I'm doing a comedy segment, you can see me smiling, smirking, and laughing. He said, they never edited that out because I knew I'm not an actor, I'm a comedian, but they got me to do a show about my comedy. So he always said that he ended up, having that smile on his face because he finds it silly that he's acting, but instead of doing his comedy while acting.
He wasn't a great actor. He's a great comedian.
Exactly.
I see Leno every once in a while. You've seen my page. I'm big into cars.
Yes.
I have classic cars.
Oh, yep.
The Facebook page.
Yep.
So some of the shows I go to, I see Leno. I have to go up and go, you remember me? And he goes, yeah, the band's different. I remember you. And I go, because we shoot the breeze because we're both from Boston.
Right.
And then we start talking and, I've seen him, I bumped into him on airplanes a lot because when I go back east for Thanksgiving, he's going back to Boston himself. So I see him at car shows here and there.
That's pretty cool.
A couple times a year.
He seems like a stand-up guy as well, so that's pretty cool.
He's a great guy. Yeah.
That's great. So can you provide some insight on the similarities and differences between comedy and acting?
Comedy and acting. That's a tough one. Okay. Yeah, comedy, as far as stand-up comedy, you have to take the stage and reach out to the people and pull them into your world, literally, okay? Right. Even if you're doing just like Rodney Dangerfield, doing one-liners, you still have to pull them into your world. And really the key to stand-up comedy is likability. If you get people who like you. And I'll give you an example. There's a lot of people that will say, did you see that comedian last night on so-and-so show? And they say, no. Well, what were his jokes? And they can't remember one joke.
Wow.
It's because they liked the person.
Right.
They liked, the person was likable. You couldn't help but like the person. That's the main thing, is to bring them in and get them to like you, and they'll buy anything.
Right.
Comedy acting is sort of a mixture of those. You do have to remain on stage. doing stand-up, I would do a lot of monology, a lot of stories about my family. I didn't do one-liners.
Right.
I would think about this, that, my family, what happened. I would bring stuff that happened to me in real life right up on stage and go that way. When you're doing comedy acting, you do have to have a sense of timing and a sense of comedic timing, but you can't deny the character. You got to stay in character.
Right.
So that's what was fun about Friday the 13th. I got to be funny, but I played a certain character and he to do funny things. And then actual acting, where it's serious, you just have to literally become the person. Literally become that person and go there. And you're not thinking about timing. You're working directly across from the other actor, and you take all of your cues from them. If you look them in the eye and they're talking to you, it should be in your mind the first time they're saying this, and you try and get your lines out as if it's the first time you're speaking them.
Right.
That's a job, you know.
Yeah.
But once you get there, I have to tell you, I've gotten chills doing it.
Right.
Talking to somebody, it's like you've entered another body somehow. So there's a big difference.
Right.
You know?
That's cool. So the last question I have for you is, do you have any future projects that you are currently working on?
As far as show business?
Anything, really.
The only thing I'm working on right now is I'm putting another band together to play all the clubs up here.
Okay.
And that's what I'm working on. I've been in a few bands here and there. I get a lot of calls, but I tell them I'm doing another gig because I hate to sound. I can play. And a lot of the bands are amateur, very amateur.
Right.
So, and my wife Lisa, who just left, always says, "Well, why don't you go play with them? It'll be fun." And I go, "There's nothing fun about lugging my drums somewhere and playing a shitty band. That's not fun. It's just not fun. I like to play with solid school musicians, you know, and then we get to the time."
Right.
So I'm working with some cats now that I enjoy working with, and we're putting everything together. And musicians are nuts. It's like trying to parallel park a train sometimes. It's nuts, man. It's really nuts.
Wow.
We're working on it. The band is Bigelow Jive, and if we, you know, it'll be on Facebook once we get going.
Okay, so what is it called?
Bigelow Jive.
Okay. Bigelo?
Bigelow.
Okay.
And then next word, Jive.
Jide. Okay.
Yeah. You know, it's funny, when I was a kid, in my 20s with the recording companies, I never touched my drums. They would be there on the stage.
Right.
You know, they would, of course they were groupies, Jesus. There were roadies that took care of everything. I would show up, the drums would set, I'd play, take off with the guys with all the girls that were backstage, and they would grab all the stuff, put it on the truck, and off it went. Now, at my age, I'm lugging my own shit around. It's weird.
That must have been nice, though, to have all that done for you, ain't it? You'd think it'd be the opposite way.
I know, I would kill. I'm thinking of taking one kid. A lot of kids want lessons, and I can't be a good teacher. I don't have the patience, I don't think. But I may take one kid on and teach him, and all he has to do is take my drums, set them up, and break them down, and I'll give him a lesson every week for free.
Right. Oh my God.
Hack my drums.
If he doesn't do it, they get Jason after him. He's gonna be working with Bob DeSimone and Billy. Come on now, you have to do it. That's good. So you're not in any acting? You're not doing any more acting at all?
No. I'm looking to retire and relax.
That makes sense.
I only work a few hours a day now, and that's just showing up. We're getting ready to go to, you know, we bought a house in Cape Cod, and it sits over the bay. It's beautiful.
That's nice.
And we go every summer for a few weeks, but once I retire fully, I'm in the process of selling the business. We'll go there every summer for the whole summer, and then come back here, but sell this big place, and we're going to buy a little place in Palm Springs. My brother's there.
Okay.
So we'll come here for the winter, because Palm Springs is nice and mild.
Right.
It's just perfect. So we'll spend the winters here and the summers there.
Awesome. So yeah, and just between me and you about this one, where was I going with this? I was gonna ask you a question, tell you something too. I forget what it was now off the top of my head.
Take your time. Where did you get to be my age?
Oh, that's it. That reminds me, actually. Now that you mentioned that. so I told my dad, I just started my job back in November, and I just finished college now with my bachelor's degree. My best friend is their senior developer here at this job, and he ended up recommending me, and I ended up getting the job because he's basically who you know nowadays. So I got the job, and a couple months later, like about maybe a month ago now, I've been here about maybe 6-7 months, and I got something in the mail that says apply for retirement. So I fill it out and everything, and I'm gonna bring it. I don't really mail anything from my apartment because I don't want it to get mixed up with everybody else. We have like this joint mailbox, and so I took it home to give to my parents so that we can mail it out at their house. And they go, "What's this?" I go, "I applied for retirement." They go, "What do you mean you applied for retirement?" I go, "Look, it says apply for retirement. I can basically retire early. I only had to work about 7 months, and now I get to retire and live comfortably and relax the rest of my life." They go, "Scott, you're basically applying for an IRA for when you turn 62. I'm like, "This is bullshit." Because my dad gets a kick out of it. Because on weekends when I go to stuff, like every other weekend, I'll go to visit them, and because they're 2 hours away, and I would end up sitting on the couch. I would just be on Facebook and on my laptop the whole weekend. Just on my laptop, write my book, be on Facebook. My dad goes to me all serious, like, "Scott, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm on Facebook, maybe write my book a little bit." They're like, "Don't you get bored?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, 2 days straight. This is Sunday night. He goes, 2 days straight, and all day Friday since you got home, you've been on that computer. You haven't left the chair. He said, "You're just on the computer." He said, "Don't you get bored?" I'm like, "No, I love it. I wish I could do this the rest of my life." I'm just that type of person. Like that's what my dad said. I'm never the type of person to do a hard labor job. That's why my full-time job is sitting in an office programming and doing programming the whole time. It's not a physically inducing job, but it's mentally exhausting. But I love it. I'm in air conditioning, in front of a computer. I can access Facebook when I want to access Facebook. That's why, like when I was messaging you, I was at work. I was able to message you while I'm on Facebook because I'm right there in front of the computer all day. It's great. I love it.
I got married late. I was single until I was 48 because I was on the road, always busy with something.
Right.
And I got married at 48, so Lisa's about 15 years younger than me.
Okay.
We didn't plan on kids. I told her, I said, "Don't plan on kids. I'm 48 years old." I said, "So if you're going to marry me, make sure, 5 years from now, you're not going to be upset that we don't have kids." She's, "No, that's okay."
Right.
And then, one night we were talking about kids, and I said, "Oh, what are we talking about kids for?" I said, "We're not going to have any." She said, "Bobby, every time we talk about kids, you're the one that brings it up."
Right.
So we got 2 kids. Now, my kids I'm 71. My kids are 21 and 18.
Wow.
They should be my grandkids.
Oh my God.
That age. So
did they ever see you in Friday the 13th?
I see them with their face buried in their phone.
So did they ever see you in Friday the 13th?
Say again?
Did they ever see you in Friday the 13th?
What?
Sorry, we're having internet problems.
Oh, yeah, they look at it. Well, they got the movie recorded. Huh?
What'd you say? Sorry, we had internet problems.
Oh, okay.
So what did you say? Like, did they see you on Friday the 13th?
Oh, sure, yeah.
They must think that's. Do they?
Yeah, they bring all their friends in. They go, look at my dad.
That's great.
And I see them with their face buried in their cell phones, and I go, "Stop! Go out and play. Go do something." But
that's funny because my little cousins, one is I think just turned 7, and the other is gonna be 10 in December, and they have their own phone, their own tablets, and I'm like, when I was 7 and 10, I was out playing basketball and. I was in school, and then after school I would play sports, video games that come out until I was like 13.
yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm not that old, but I mean, back when I was a kid, we didn't have any of that stuff. There was I remember when the computer was just starting to get big. I was about 8 years old, and that's when I started using it. And this is when we had those big, bubble type of monitors, and you're like the only games you played were solitaire and free cell. Like that's all it really was. The internet just came out when I was about 8, 9 years old. Like it wasn't this well-known thing that it is now. Like we didn't even have smartphones. We didn't have internet on phones. There was no such thing as texting. We had these huge ass phones that like regular cordless type of phones in a way that were your mobile phones.
When in '69, when they landed a guy on the moon, the computers they used had less power than a cell phone.
Right.
That's how, and the computers were housed in airplane hangars. They were so big.
Right.
But they did it with they got just those black screens in DOS,
Yep.
and they landed you think, man.
Yep. And I didn't get my first phone until when I went off to college at 17 going on 18. I got my first phone, and my parents said because you waited to get your first phone, we'll buy you your first phone and pay for the plan because you're still in college. And you're gonna be turning 18, so I'm willing to buy you a used car so you can get to and from school and to come to us and whatnot. So they did that because I didn't have a phone my whole year, like all high school. All my friends had phones, and my parents only gave me their phone, and it had no texting. It only had calls where I could call my parents on emergency only, because they did not want me to use it during school hours. Or like all the other kids were getting in trouble and getting their phones taken off because they're using it in class. They wouldn't let my parents didn't want me to do that, and I'm glad they did it because I got a solid education. Now I'm being successful. I'm got a full time job. I'm getting I just got my bachelor's degree. All this is going on.
Good for you.
So I mean, it basically kept my my a good head on my shoulders from that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you. I had a great time.
My pleasure, Scotty.
No problem.
I hope I gave you enough because, I said, I've only worked in the film 2 days, so I wasn't really deep into the whole production. But I hope I gave you something.
You definitely did, and like that, I do this I don't because the interview is about an hour long. I don't listen to the whole interview. I skip through like each question. I listen to bits and pieces, and like you do with improvising with comedy, I do the same thing. I basically put what you have, and then I kind of add to it based on what you said, based on what I remember and all that. And then I don't because I'm not going to sit there for an hour typing every word you say too. That gets too much. You know what I mean? So and I have all these interviews I'm doing so. But I'll be using what you have, and you gave me more than enough. I mean, the most I want is at least 2 to 3 pages per actor, and if it goes longer, fine. If it doesn't, then that's great. But I don't think I have. I think every person I interviewed so far was at least a minimum 2 pages.
Good.
Yeah. So thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure. Be good.
Yeah, you too. I definitely will. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Yeah, you too. Bye. You're such a nice guy.